Everyone laughed when the maid's daughter said, "I speak 5 languages." They thought she was just a child, invisible and powerless. But that night, in the Grand Whitmore estate, her words exposed a dangerous conspiracy, unmasked hidden betrayal, and turned the tables on the most powerful people in the room. Watch how the girl they underestimated becomes the one who saves them all, and leaves them shocked forever. This is not just a story. It's a piece of someone's hidden pain, quietly waiting to be heard. In today's story, we dive into a moment that can change everything, in the most unexpected way. Before we begin, where are you listening from? Canada? The US? Norway? Let us know in the comments, because stories may begin anywhere, but they connect us all. Stay with us until the very end, because sometimes, what breaks your heart can also heal it. And if you believe stories can change lives, hit subscribe. Join our journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment. Your voice matters here. The grand halls of the Whitmore estate were alive with whispers, the kind of whispers that sliced through the air like knives cloaked in velvet. Crystal chandeliers gleamed above, casting shimmering light upon polished marble floors. Wealthy guests, men in sharp suits, women in flowing gowns, moved with practiced grace, holding glasses of champagne as though the weight of the world had never touched their hands. And then, in the corner, stood a young girl, barefoot in a simple cotton dress. Her hair, tied back with a fading ribbon, framed a face that was too delicate, too alive, for the shadows she lived in. Her name was Sophia. To them she was nobody, a maid's daughter, invisible, except when her presence was an inconvenience. But on that night, something would happen that no one could ignore. When laughter echoed through the ballroom at a careless remark, Sophia's quiet voice broke the air. "I speak 5 languages," she said, her tone unshaken, her eyes burning with truth. The room froze. Then, eruption, louder than music, crueler than glass shattering. For how could the daughter of a maid, a girl raised scrubbing floors and carrying buckets, claim such brilliance? What they did not know was that behind those eyes lived stories, sorrows, and secrets bigger than anyone in that glittering room could imagine. And what she was about to reveal would shake not only the guests, but the very foundation of the Whitmore family itself. Sophia grew up in the servants' quarters of Whitmore Estate, a sprawling mansion that stood like a monument to power. While the Whitmores lived above in chandeliers and silk, she lived below in stone walls and dim candlelight. Her mother, Elena, was the head maid, a woman whose hands were cracked from endless work, but whose heart overflowed with dreams for her daughter. Every morning, before the rest of the household stirred, Sophia would rise early to help her mother polish silverware and scrub floors. She learned to move silently, to vanish when footsteps approached. The wealthy family never saw her, or if they did not look. Yet even as she lived in silence, Sophia listened. Her ears absorbed everything. The conversations of diplomats, the business calls of Mr. Whitmore, the poetry Mrs. Whitmore recited to guests. She listened not just with curiosity but with hunger. Her greatest treasure was a collection of discarded books she had found in the attic, a French dictionary missing half its cover, a volume of Spanish poetry, an Italian songbook, a German fairy tale collection, and a small English primer. With a candle stub and torn pages, she taught herself words no one thought she had the right to know. But when she tried to share her knowledge, the laughter came. From the other servants, from the Whitmore children, even from adults who should have known better. 5 languages. They mocked. "And here I thought you barely knew how to mop a floor." Still, Sophia's fire did not dim. Her eyes, dark, determined, held something they could not laugh away. What no one knew was that the moment to prove herself would come far sooner than anyone expected, during a night when the Whitmores would need her more than anyone else. The Whitmore Library was forbidden territory, a vast chamber lined with leather, bound tomes, gilded spines, and locked cabinets that seemed to guard the secrets of the world. Yet it was Sophia's sanctuary. When her chores were done and the house fell silent, she would slip inside, lighting only the faintest candle, and read until her eyes burned. On one such night, she discovered a letter, misplaced between books. It was written in a language none of the Whitmores could read, but to her it was clear. The letter was in Italian, and it spoke of a looming deal, a betrayal hidden beneath courtesies, and a meeting that could decide the fate of Whitmore Industries. Sophia's hands trembled as she held it. She knew she had stumbled onto something dangerous, something not meant for her eyes. But she also knew it was important. The next morning, when she cautiously mentioned it to her mother, Elena's face went pale. "Sophia," she whispered, gripping her daughter's wrist, "you must never let them know. If they realize what you can do, they will use you, or worse, destroy you. But secrets never stay hidden forever." What Sophia didn't realize was that this letter would resurface in the most public way possible, at the Whitmores' grand banquet. The Whitmore estate glittered with light that evening, as if the stars themselves had descended into its chandeliers. The banquet hall was dressed in gold, gleaming silverware laid upon velvet, draped tables, polished glasses waiting for wine that cost more than Sophia and her mother earned in a year. Guests arrived in polished cars, their laughter ringing out as they stepped onto the marble floors in gowns and tuxedos. For Sophia, the night was one of endless work. She and her mother moved quickly between tables, replenishing drinks, carrying trays, ensuring not a single speck of dust betrayed their efforts. Servants were meant to be silent shadows, present yet unseen. But Sophia's eyes wandered. She couldn't help it. She observed the way the men shook hands too firmly, the way the women exchanged compliments laced with poison, the way everyone wore smiles that were more masked than truth. And as she refilled a glass near the main table, her gaze landed on a figure she had never seen before, a foreign delegate, tall, dressed impeccably, his accent rolling smoothly as he spoke to Mr. Whitmore. But when he leaned in, his voice dropped into Italian, words that no one else in the room understood, no one except Sophia. Her heart thudded against her ribs. His words were a threat cloaked in civility. He spoke of contracts, of hidden debts, of power slipping from Whitmore's hands unless he agreed to certain terms. The meaning was clear. Mr. Whitmore was being cornered. And then it happened. As if fate had been waiting for the cruelest moment, a careless guest, half drunk, with too much arrogance, noticed Sophia pausing near the table. "Why do you hover like that, girl?" he barked. "What, do you think you understand our conversations?" The room chuckled, eyes turning toward the maid's daughter. Sophia's cheeks flushed, but before she could step back, another voice added mockery. "Maybe she thinks she's cleverer than all of us. Tell us, girl, do you speak the king's English?" The laughter swelled like a wave crashing down, and Sophia, her hand still clutching the empty wine jug, felt something ignite inside her. Her lips parted, and in flawless French she said softly, "I do. And I also speak the language of your wine, monsieur. You have spilled half of it on your sleeve." The room fell silent for a beat, then exploded again, but this time with louder laughter. They thought it was a trick, a rehearsed line. But Sophia didn't stop. In Spanish, she offered to fetch another bottle. In German, she asked a guest if he preferred white or red. In Italian, clear, deliberate. She repeated every word the foreign delegate had spoken to Mr. Whitmore only moments earlier. The laughter froze. The color drained from faces. Mr. Whitmore's eyes widened in shock. The delegate's glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. And suddenly, Sophia was no longer invisible. What no one knew yet was that her revelation had just painted a target on her back, because secrets that powerful were never meant to leave the shadows. The room had never been so silent. Even the music, once bright and alive, seemed to stumble into uneasy quiet. All eyes were fixed on Sophia, the maid's daughter who had just shattered the invisible wall between servant and master. Her mother, Elena, froze in the corner, her tray trembling in her hands. She wanted to rush forward, to shield her child from the daggers in those stairs, but her feet refused to move. Mr. Whitmore leaned forward, his glass forgotten, his voice sharp but low. "What did you just say?" Sophia's heart pounded like a drum, but her gaze didn't waver. He said, she repeated in English now, that if you do not sign his terms, your company will collapse under debts you did not know existed. He also said, she hesitated, eyes flicking to the delegate, that he would ensure your family name is remembered in disgrace. Gasps broke through the hall like cracks in glass. The foreign delegate's face twisted, no longer charming, but cold and venomous. He stood, towering over Sophia, his words clipped and furious in Italian. "Little liar. You misunderstand everything." But Sophia matched his tone, her Italian sharper than his own. "No, I understand perfectly. You underestimated who might be listening." The hall erupted into whispers. Guests exchanged frantic glances. The Whitmore children looked on with wide-eyed fascination, as though they were witnessing a scene from a play rather than real life. Mr. Whitmore raised his hand, silencing the chaos. His eyes, steel, gray and calculating, studied Sophia as though seeing her for the first time. "How many languages do you speak, girl?" "5. Sophia answered, her voice steady. "English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian." A long pause stretched thin over the banquet like a taut wire. Then, slowly, incredulously, laughter broke again, this time nervous, uneasy, as if the guests no longer knew whether to mock or fear her. But one thing was certain: the balance of power had shifted. The delegate's glare was a dagger pointed at Sophia, and she felt it. A chill crawled across her skin. He wasn't just embarrassed, he was exposed. And men with power didn't forgive exposure. Elena finally moved, rushing forward to pull Sophia close. She whispered fiercely in her ear, "You should have stayed silent. Do you know what you've done?" But Sophia, her small frame pressed against her mother's trembling arms, whispered back, "I only spoke the truth." Above them, Mr. Whitmore straightened. His voice carried through the hall with authority. "The girl stays. We will speak of this later." And just like that, Sophia was no longer a shadow in the halls. She was part of the story, whether she wanted it or not. As the banquet resumed, unease lingered in the air. Every laugh felt hollow, every smile stretched too tightly. But no one noticed the foreign delegate slip away into the night, his eyes burning with silent promises. Sophia had unveiled the truth, but she did not yet know the storm she had invited, one that could destroy both her and the Whitmores. That night, the Whitmore mansion did not sleep. The chandeliers dimmed, the music ended, the guests retreated to their carriages, but the air remained heavy with whispers of what had happened. Alina clutched Sophia's hand tightly as they descended to the servants' quarters. Her voice was sharp with fear. "Do you understand what you've done? That man, he was dangerous. He has the power to ruin lives. He won't forget you embarrassed him." The Sophia wanted to answer, but her throat was dry. Her mind replayed every moment, the way the delegate's face had darkened, the way the guests' laughter had turned into uneasy silence, the way Mr. Whitmore's piercing eyes had pinned her as though she was no longer just the maid's daughter, but something more, something he couldn't yet define. In the quiet of their small, candlelit room, Elena held Sophia's face in her hands. "Promise me you will keep your head down now? No more words, no more showing off. Promise me, Sophia." But before Sophia could respond, a knock rattled the door. 2 Whitmore guards stood in the hallway. Their presence in the servants' quarters was unheard of. One of them spoke curtly. "Mr. Whitmore requests the girl. Now." And Alina's face drained of color. "She's just a child. She needs rest." "She comes now?" The guard interrupted. Sophia looked up at her mother, her heart pounding, but something inside her refused to cower. She squeezed Alina's hand and whispered, "It's all right, Mama." Then she followed the guards. They led her not to the grand study where Mr. Whitmore conducted business, but to the library, the forbidden place she had once crept into by candlelight. Now, its towering shelves loomed above her openly, no longer a sanctuary but a chamber of judgment. Mr. Whitmore sat in a high-backed leather chair, papers spread before him, a half-empty glass of scotch at his side. His gray eyes flicked up the moment Sophia entered. "Sit," he ordered. Sophia obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair across from him. Her small hands rested in her lap, but her back was straight, her chin slightly lifted. "You embarrassed a man who holds contracts worth millions," he began slowly, each word measured. "You repeated things you should not have understood. Tell me, how did you learn?" Sophia hesitated. To tell the truth meant admitting she had been trespassing in his library, stealing knowledge not meant for her. But to lie, her heart refused. "I listened. I read the books no one else wanted. I learned because I had to." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Whitmore leaned back, studying her not with anger but with intrigue. "You have a gift," he said at last. "And gifts are either used or wasted." His voice dropped lower, carrying a weight Sophia could feel in her bones. "From this moment, you are no longer invisible. But understand this, girl. Visibility comes with danger." As he poured another drink, the clock on the wall struck midnight. Outside, beyond the iron gates of the Whitmore estate, the foreign delegate sat in a black car, his eyes fixed on the mansion windows. And in his hand he held a phone, dialing someone whose name could bring ruin. The night stretched long over the Whitmore estate, but sleep did not visit its halls. Sophia lay in her small bed in the servants' quarters, her eyes wide, tracing the patterns of the cracked ceiling. Every creak of the mansion, every whisper of wind against the windows, felt amplified, an omen of the storm gathering beyond the walls. Her mother, Elena, had fallen into a fitful sleep, exhausted from the tension and fear that clung to her like a second skin. Sophia, however, could not rest. Images of the banquet flashed in her mind. The stunned faces, the foreign delegates' furious glare, the uneasy pause of her master, Mr. Whitmore. She understood now that words could wield power, and that power could provoke danger. Far from the mansion, in the dim interior of a black sedan parked near the gates, the delegate sat with a phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, controlled, but dripping with menace. "She knows too much." She repeated what she heard. "If she talks again, it will ruin everything. Do you understand? Nothing must remain." Sophia's pulse quickened without knowing why, as though she could feel his intent reaching across miles. The chill in the air seemed to deepen. The next morning brought little relief. The mansion was alive again with its usual parade of wealth and power, but shadows lingered in corners. Sophia moved with practiced care, fulfilling chores with quiet precision. Every footstep felt measured, every glance calculated. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet fire burned. She was determined, in a way she had never been before, to remain steadfast. It was in the kitchen that the first sign of danger appeared. One of the Whitmore guards, a man she had never seen before, lingered by the doorway, his eyes unnervingly sharp. He watched Sophia, head tilted slightly, his expression unreadable. "You've caught attention," Elena whispered when she noticed, her voice tight with worry. "Be careful." Sophia nodded silently, but deep down, she knew it wasn't just about attention. It was about consequences. The delegate's reach was long, and even walls like Whitmore Estate were not enough to shield her. Later that day, while dusting the library shelves under the guise of tidying up, Sophia noticed a subtle change. The books had shifted, some missing. And then, on the polished floor near the Italian dictionaries, a note lay folded neatly. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. Written in precise Italian were 3 words, "I'm watching you." Her heart raced. The note could have been a prank or a warning. But Sophia knew better. Someone powerful knew exactly what she could do, and they were preparing to test her resolve. Whitmore appeared silently behind her. "Sophia," he said quietly, "you've stepped into a world far more dangerous than you realize. But you also have something rare, courage and intelligence. Keep your wits. You may be the only one who can stop what's coming." Sophia swallowed hard, the weight of the warning pressing down on her like a physical force. That evening, as shadows lengthened across the estate, the delegate made his move. Sending an unexpected visitor to the servants' quarters, a messenger whose arrival would set the first spark of chaos and test Sophia's courage like never before. The sun had barely risen over the Whitmore estate when an unfamiliar sound broke the morning stillness. A soft, hesitant knock at the servants' quarters. Sophia, already awake from a restless night, felt a shiver run down her spine. The knock was deliberate, slow, and echoed too loudly in the quiet hallway. Elena, sensing something was wrong, clutched Sophia's arm. "Do not open," she whispered fiercely. "We do not know who it is. It could be." Her words trailed off, leaving the fear unsaid. But Sophia, though small and young, had learned that courage was not measured by size. She tightened her grip on her mother's hand, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Standing in the hallway was a man in a gray overcoat, his face obscured beneath the brim of a wide hat. In his hand he held a sealed envelope, the wax stamp marked as if it had traveled far. No words escaped him. He simply extended the envelope toward Sophia. Elena stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Who are you? What do you want?" The man remained silent. His eyes, cold and unreadable, did not waver from Sophia. With a slow, deliberate movement he handed the envelope to her and turned, disappearing down the hall before either of them could speak again. Sophia closed the door, her pulse racing. She held the envelope tightly, sensing immediately that it was no ordinary message. Breaking the wax seal with trembling fingers, she pulled out a single sheet of paper. The words, typed in sharp, precise Italian, made her stomach drop. "You should have stayed silent. Knowledge like yours is dangerous. One more word, and those you love will pay the price." Her hands shook as she read it again and again. The warning was clear, unrelenting, and impossible to ignore. Elena's face went pale. "We need to tell Mr. Whitmore," she said urgently. "This isn't just a threat to you. It's to the family." Sophia shook her head. "No, he doesn't need to know yet. It's better if we handle this quietly. If they know I'm the target, it will put everyone in danger." For hours the girls stayed close, speaking in hushed tones, eyes darting to every creak of the floorboards. Each passing moment stretched, thick with tension. Even the servants moved cautiously, sensing the unease but unable to name its cause. By evening, the threat had grown heavier. The winds outside rattled the windows, and shadows seemed to reach into the corners of the estate. Sophia realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a warning. It was the first strike. The delegate had begun a calculated attack, testing her courage, her intelligence, and her resolve. And Sophia knew she couldn't hide. To survive, she would have to act. Not only for herself, but for the people she loved, and for the Whitmore family who had, however reluctantly, begun to recognize her worth. That night, as the mansion slept under a dark sky, a second messenger arrived. But this time, it was not a note, not a warning. It was a living shadow in the garden, and Sophia would have to confront it, or risk losing everything. The Whitmore estate lay silent under a heavy, moonless sky. Even the wind seemed to hesitate as it moved through the towering oaks surrounding the mansion. Inside, the household slept, or pretended to. But Sophia could not. Her pulse still raced from the warning that had arrived the night before. Drawn to the gardens by some instinct she could not explain, she slipped quietly through the servants' corridors, careful not to wake her mother. The night air was cold, pressing against her thin dress, but she hardly noticed. She felt the weight of eyes she could not see, a presence that made the shadows stretch unnaturally long. And then she saw him. A figure moved among the rose bushes, silent and deliberate. The shape of a man tall and cloaked, but his face hidden in darkness. His movements were patient, calculated, as if he had rehearsed every step. Sophia's heart pounded, not just with fear but with recognition. This was no ordinary intruder. This was the delegate's messenger, sent to ensure that she understood the stakes. "You shouldn't have come out here, little girl," the man said, his voice low and smooth, cutting through the silence like a blade. Sophia swallowed hard, gripping the folds of her dress. "I am not afraid of threats. You don't know who I am." The man's lips curled into a shadow of a smile. "Oh, I know exactly who you are, and I know what you can do. You have made yourself visible." That is a dangerous choice. Sophia felt a chill, but something inside her ignited. She remembered every lesson learned in silence, every word from the books she had studied in the attic, every subtle observation of the Whitmore family's dealings. Knowledge was her weapon, and she would wield it. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling but firm. "Information," he replied, "and obedience. Your master, the man you call Mr. Whitmore, has secrets that do not belong to you. But you, girl, you have learned too much." He stepped closer and moonlight caught the glint of something metallic in his hand. A knife. A tool. Sophia could not tell. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he was gone, melting into the shadows like smoke. A single note fluttered to her feet, weighed down with a small stone. "Next time, there may be no warning." Sophia picked it up, her fingers trembling. Her mind raced. She realized that fear alone would not protect her, nor her mother. She would have to act, intelligently, decisively. When she returned to the house, the shadows of the garden still clung to her, whispering threats she could not ignore. Yet, beneath the fear, a new determination grew. She had faced a messenger of darkness and survived. And surviving was only the beginning. By morning, the delegate's true plan would reveal itself, and Sophia would find herself at the center of a conspiracy that could either elevate her or destroy everything she had ever known. By dawn, the Whitmore estate seemed almost serene, the earlier night's tension hidden behind glimmering windows and polished doors. But Sophia knew better. Danger did not sleep, and neither did the shadows that had begun creeping through the mansion. The morning started like any other, with servants bustling quietly, careful not to disturb the family above. Sophia moved through the corridors, her mind racing. Every creak of a floorboard, every whisper of a maid or footman, felt like a potential trap. She had survived the night in the gardens, but the delegate's warning was not idle. It was a prelude to something larger. It was in the study that she saw the first sign of the plot unfolding. Mr. Whitmore, usually calm and collected, paced the room with a furrowed brow, holding documents that trembled slightly in his hands. His face, sharp and commanding, was now lined with a rare tension. "Look at this, Sophia," he said, motioning toward the papers. "Contracts shifted. Accounts manipulated. Someone has infiltrated my business, using my own allies against me." Sophia leaned over the desk, her eyes scanning the documents. She recognized patterns immediately. The same signatures forged with precision, the same phrasing that hinted at inside knowledge. It was clever, calculated, and terrifyingly dangerous. "The delegate," she whispered. "He's behind this." Mr. Whitmore's eyes met hers, a mixture of fear and awe. "How do you know?" Sophia explained, carefully, recounting everything. The warning note, the shadow in the garden, the threats in Italian. As she spoke, a plan began to form in her mind. She realized that knowledge alone would not save the Whitmores. Action was required, and it had to be precise. By noon, Sophia was leading a quiet investigation. She moved with stealth, questioning the household staff under the guise of mundane tasks, observing every interaction, every hesitant glance. And piece by piece, the conspiracy's edges became clear. A network of bribed officials, corrupted employees, and foreign agents, all manipulated by the delegate, all aiming to cripple the Whitmore empire from within. It was dangerous work, more dangerous than anything Sophia had done before. One misstep, one wrong word, and not only she but her mother and everyone in the mansion could face ruin. Yet for the first time in her life, she felt empowered. Her knowledge, her languages, her sharp mind. They were no longer just secrets whispered in the attic, they were weapons. As evening fell, Sophia returned to the study to brief Mr. Whitmore. "We have a mole," she said, pointing to a name on the ledger. "And he is about to deliver critical information to the delegate. If we act now, we can intercept him and expose the entire plot." And Mr. Whitmore nodded slowly, a rare glimmer of respect in his gaze. "You've grown stronger than I ever imagined, Sophia. This is beyond bravery. This is brilliance." And as they prepared to act, a sharp, deliberate knock shattered the tense quiet of the mansion. At the door stood the mole, betrayer of trust, instrument of the delegate, and in his hand, a secret that could destroy the Whitmore family completely, unless Sophia acted faster than anyone expected. The night was dense with tension. The Whitmore estate, grand and imposing in daylight, now seemed like a labyrinth of shadows and whispered fears. Sophia and Mr. Whitmore waited in the study, their plan set, their nerves taut like drawn strings. Every tick of the antique clock echoed through the silent room, each one a reminder of how little time they had. Then the door creaked. The mole stepped inside, carrying himself with false confidence, unaware that the young girl he had underestimated was already several steps ahead. His eyes darted to Mr. Whitmore, then to Sophia, lingering a moment too long on her small, poised figure. "You called for me?" he asked, trying to mask the slight tremor in his voice. Sophia's lips curled into a calm, controlled smile. "Yes. We need to discuss the information you plan to deliver." The man froze. He had assumed he could manipulate them both, yet here was the maid's daughter, the invisible girl he had once laughed at, standing between him and his scheme. Her gaze was steady, unwavering, and it cut through him like a blade. With deliberate motion, Sophia pulled forward a series of documents, each annotated in multiple languages, each spelling out the true extent of the delegates' conspiracy. She switched seamlessly between English, French, German, Spanish, and Italian as she recited details of the plan, details that no one else in the room could have known. The mole's face paled. His confidence faltered. He took a step back. How do you know all this? Sophia's voice was calm, but her words carried the weight of truth. I learned. I listened. I read. And I refused to be invisible. Mr. Whitmore moved forward, taking the documents. You've done what none of my advisors could. You've uncovered a threat that would have destroyed us. And you've done it with nothing but knowledge and courage. The mole, realizing the walls were closing in, made a desperate move, reaching for a hidden device in his coat. But before he could act, 2 guards, summoned silently by Sophia during the conversation, seized him. The threat had been neutralized before it could reach its deadly conclusion. As the room finally relaxed, a new realization settled in. Sophia's small frame, once dismissed as insignificant, had carried the power to save a family, an empire, and countless lives. And for the first time, the guests, the staff, and even Mr. Whitmore himself saw her not as a maid's daughter, but as a force of intellect and bravery. Elena rushed into the study, tears in her eyes. She embraced her daughter tightly, whispering, "You've done more than anyone could imagine." Sophia smiled, a mixture of relief and exhaustion, and looked around the room at the faces that had once mocked her. Now there was awe, respect, and perhaps a little fear. She realized that life would never return to the shadows. Her journey from invisibility to recognition had reshaped her world, and the Whitmore estate itself. And as dawn broke over the mansion, the first golden light filtering through crystal windows, Sophia whispered to herself, "I am no longer invisible." The delegate, far away and defeated by the girl he had underestimated, would never forget her. And everyone who had laughed at the maid's daughter would carry the memory of the moment she spoke 5 languages, and saved them all.
In a mansion of wealth and power, everyone laughed at the maid's daughter when she claimed, "I speak 5 languages." Invisible to the world, she held secrets no one could imagine. But when a dangerous conspiracy threatened the Whitmore family, it was her intelligence, courage, and determination that uncovered the truth, exposed betrayal, and turned the tide. This is the story of a girl underestimated by all, who became the one no one could ignore,